I can't tell you how many times I've made the drive up and down 75 from Michigan, Florida to Michigan, Tennessee to Michigan. In fact, one of my videos, 2 Compelling Stories, I was actually at this place I'm going to talk about while I was filming that video. But one of the unique things about driving up and down 75 in the northern states that's kind of memorable, speaking about big cities, is that the Ohio River, there's a bridge that goes across the Ohio River that connects Kentucky and Ohio, and it was always a real big deal to me because it was like one big city. You couldn't tell the difference where Louisville on the Kentucky side stopped and where Cincinnati, Ohio began on the northern side of the Ohio River, except for when you crossed over the bridge in the Ohio River, and that was the state line. Well, now somebody posted on my video, he was talking with a friend of his, some guy, and Louisville isn't on the southern border on the other side of that bridge anymore. So I thought, surely he's got to be mistaken. I went and checked it out on Google Maps, and sure enough, not only is Louisville not on the southern side of the bridge, it's like 100 miles south and 100 miles west. It's not even on I-75 anymore. Now, usually when there's some big change that happens, there will be something else in its place that will give the unaffected people some room to argue, to say, you're just remembering, this versus this. Well, there's no big city in Louisville, in the place of Louisville, on the south side of the bridge now at all. So you can't just say, well, you're confused. It was, Lexington or some other city in Kentucky, because there's nothing else there now. That is seriously just blown my mind. And I know that a lot of people say, well, a lot of people can't see the changes that are close to them and these kind of things, and that's not true either. I've been in Florida since 1984, and every time the weather map comes on, like I remember the first time this happened, really freaked me out. They were showing the state of Florida on the satellite, so-called picture, and I saw this land off the east coast of Florida that was supposed to be the Bahamas, and there's a lot more land off the east coast of Florida, and every time I see a satellite image, there's more light blue in the water areas, which leads me to believe that those are going to be more land soon. So I don't get that. And then Cuba is a real big one for me. When I first moved here, in the first 10 or 15 years I was here, I remember just scrutinizing the map, because there used to be all these stories about the people that used to come over in these little, inflatable lifeboats from Cuba. And, so I used to line it up and, see, because it was like 90 miles or 110 miles, but it was due south of Key West. It was a little island that was due south of Key West. And I'm not talking about using the city or a capital in Cuba to line up under Key West. The whole island was little and directly centered under Key West. And now, to look at it on the map now, if you look at the length of it, it's longer than the state of Florida. Damn. And I remember in 2010, I was working at a pharmacy in Naples, Florida, and it was kind of like a little sub part of it called Golden Gate, and they were primarily all Hispanic people in that community. And I remember the first day I walked into the pharmacy, I was a little bit freaked out because I didn't know anybody Hispanic really in my life. And when I walked in, 100% of the people who shop there, work there, customers there, were not even bilingual. They were just Spanish speaking only. And I was thinking, Dios mío, tengo problema. And I had to learn Spanish really fast. But one of the baggers at the store that the pharmacy was in, he was from, I talked to him, I can't tell you how many times. He didn't speak English either, but like I said, I had to learn how to speak Spanish really fast. But he was from a little teeny piece of land just off the southern coast of Cuba called Isla de Pinero. And I will not forget that, not confusing it, because what that means in English is Pine Island. And there is a Pine Island in this area where I live, and that's how I'd always remember it. Well, now looking at a map, it's never been Isla de Pinero. It's always been Isla de Juventud, mean like island of the youth, youthful. So of course I'd look up the story on Google and figure out what, and supposedly the story now is that it either was going to be named the name that I always knew, or they changed it in the 70s or some crazy thing. But the point is, I would never know, as an American who'd never been there and if I hadn't known somebody from there, I would have never known it was Isla de Pinero, Pine Island. So I got in touch with the person that used to work there and tried to ask him, and again, he only speaks Spanish, and so it was kind of hard because I'm pretty limited in my Spanish to like present tense, some past, some future preterite, but it was really tough to ask him. And of course, no, he doesn't remember. It's always been the other, and he's trying to explain. And I'm like, well, how would I ever know the name unless you're the one that told me? And anyway, so no, he doesn't remember, doesn't think it's a big deal. So called my brother, knowing that he's not going to remember the Louisville, Cincinnati, double city there, but I figured I'd call him anyway. I'm like, hey, don't you remember driving back and forth to Michigan? Louisville, big city, cross the bridge. Cincinnati's like, yeah. I'm like, well, go look at your map because Louisville ain't there anymore. And he's like, well, I think this and that. And of course, the same old excuses everybody makes. And then he ends with, well, yeah, I don't really remember, just like everybody does. But yeah, that still, how do you move a whole city? Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy.